There's one case of this young girl who just got a hamster, I think it was, got allergy to the hamster, and literally took this beautiful young girl, and her face just starts aging at a rapid rate. They get rid of the hamster. She goes back to nasal breathing, and like these beautiful, almost like model-esque features come back in this girl.
In the first picture, this kid looks great and he has a nice facial proportion, but here he doesn't look so good. You can see his lower lip is flaccid, his chin is falling back, and his cheek is getting very flat. He bought a gerbil, kept it in his room, and was allergic to it, which went from being a total nose breather with his lips together to hanging his mouth open. The same thing has been shown during the 1960s by the dentist Eagle Harvold, where he took perfectly normal monkeys and plugged their noses up. They dropped their mouths open and put their tongues in the bottom of their mouths. They'd rather do that than die. Their faces got long, their maxilla became narrower, and they developed malocclusions like humans have.
If you can't breathe out of your nose, you're forced to either die or breathe out of your mouth. And to breathe out your mouth, you have to let the tongue off the roof of the mouth. You have to open your mouth, and if this lasts for any time, and breathing problems often are repetitive and they can last for several days, you'll change your habit from this to this. And if this becomes your habit, then you have weak muscles like most people do from a modern diet. Your face will get long.
If you stay with us, you'll see how mouth breathing can affect the beauty of your face at any age, how it will lower your intelligence, and how much it endangers your health. And of course, we teach the solutions that can quickly turn nose breathing into a habit in 5 easy steps. And using an app reminder feature. Why should we breathe through the nose? A mouth breather refers to a dumb person because leaving your mouth open just looks dumb, and also breathing through the mouth actually decreases intelligence somehow. Actually, there is evidence that simply taking air into the mouth rather than the nose can result in reduced IQ. A systematic review of medical literature in Brazil found that overall, 80% of the articles showed a higher incidence of learning disabilities among mouth breathers. People who mouth breathe have a tendency to have increased vertical facial growth and a retracted or receded mandible. Essentially, mouth breathing leads to a longer face with a set-back jaw, less pronounced cheekbones, and restricted airways.
But no one knew how quickly that damage came on. So we knew that after years, it can change the structure of your face. It's so common in kids that it has a term called adenoid face. If you see these kids with very long faces, because they've been mouth breathing so long that their faces have actually, the musculature and the skeleture have changed.
It changes your skeleton.
Yeah. It creates a longer face.
Nasal breathing increases nitric oxide production, which helps dilate or expand the blood vessels, reducing blood pressure and making breathing occur more easily. Moreover, nasal breathing humidifies the air and reduces the entry of pathogens and dust into the airway, making your airway healthier. Chronic mouth breathing can lead to cavities, gum disease, lowered immune function, digestive disturbances, poor sleep quality, and may result in crooked teeth and even a poorly developed facial structure. Aside from being considered more unattractive, imagine yourself sleeping close to the one who you love and starting to snore. Of course, it would be a negative point for you, and mouth breathing is one of the reasons of snoring, because it makes the airway smaller. When the airway is smaller, this contributes to sleep apnea because mouth breathing increases the resistance of air going into the lungs during sleep. This resistance causes the throat to collapse and get smaller, limiting air entering the lungs. Also, mouth breathing reduces oxygenation to the brain, which has been shown to potentially impair working memory and other cognitive functions. When you breathe through your mouth, your tongue has to descend and protrude at the same time, increasing the pressure of your cheeks and pushing the upper jaw inwards, so the growth and development of your upper jaw is negatively affected, resulting in a narrow palate. The upper dental arch acquires a V shape instead of being a U shape around the dental arch. Therefore, your teeth do not have space to align properly, and as a consequence, there is less room for your teeth and they become crooked. This kind of nose is common among mouth breathers. The nose is a piece of cartilaginous tissue, it's not a bone, and it's supported by the maxilla. And when the maxilla drops downwards, a hump will appear there. You will see no mouth breather have hunter eyes. If you didn't hear about hunter eyes are characterized by a thin layer of skin that folds over the eye, a more rectangular shape, and a forward developed maxilla, while prey eyes have more eyelid exposure and a flatter underdeveloped maxilla. So mouth breathers can't have it. People who breathe through their mouths often have a particular look in their eyes. This is because their eyes lack proper support from the upper jaw, which leads to a downward slant, visible under eye bags, and an increased display of the whites of the eyes. Over time, the lack of support causes the skin around the eyes to sag. To counteract this, mouth breathers tend to tilt their heads upward to keep their eyes level. Mouth breathers also tend to move their heads forward and tilt them back because it improves their airway. When the mandible drops down, the tongue moves back and one needs to tilt the head forward to facilitate airflow. Over time, the chin recedes and the cheeks also start to sag.
Air comes through your mouth, air comes through your nose. Yeah. What is the difference between the air coming through your nose?
Okay. So your nose, if you were to take your fist, you've got a really big fist. So someone with a slightly smaller fist, and to take that fist and imagine just pushing it inside of your head, that's about the volume of your nose and all the sinus cavities. So they even stretch up above your eyes.
So the volume of your fist, that's crazy.
It looks exactly like a seashell. If you were to split a seashell in half and look at it, that's what's happening in your nose. And all of this stuff evolved this way for a reason. So that air that comes in through the nose is slowed down, it's filtered, it's humidified, and it's conditioned. So by the time it gets to your lungs can absorb that oxygen so much easier.
The nose is extremely complex and takes up much more space than just the knob in the middle of your face. That's only 30% of it. The other 70% of the nasal cavity is deep within the skull. When someone breathes through the mouth, they are bypassing several critical functions of the nose. To name just a few, the nose filters, warms, and moistens the air you breathe to make it more suitable for your lungs. Nasal breathing also increases levels of nitric oxide, a key signaling molecule used throughout the body.
The gas, nitric oxide, is actually created in the nasal passages. It's a gas that can cause relaxation of the smooth muscles that relate to the vasculature, not just of your nose, but of your brain and for all the tissues of your body. This is why nasal breathing and not mouth breathing is great for when you want to relieve congestion. And when people mouth breathe, there's an elongation of the jaw, droopiness of the eyelids, and the entire jaw structure really changes in ways that are not aesthetically favorable. Fortunately, when people switch to becoming nasal breathers, and of course that takes some encouragement either by mouth taping or doing their cardiovascular exercise with mouth closed, or by doing the sorts of exercises that we talked about earlier. When they switch to becoming nasal breathers by default, the aesthetic changes that occur are very dramatic and very favorable, including sort of elevation of the eyebrows, not in an artificial sense or in a kind of outrageous way, but elevation of the cheekbones, sharpening of the jaw, and most notably improvements of the teeth and the entire jaw structure.
Another very important function of the nose is that it regulates airflow and helps prevent overbreathing. Breathing in and out more air than necessary results in hypercapnia or a state of reduced carbon dioxide in the blood. This is why people breathe into a paper bag when hyperventilating from intense stress or an anxiety attack. How to make nose breathing into a habit. If you struggle to breathe in and out easily through your nose, make sure that your nose is clean and hydrated. Take your 2 fingers, put them up against the holes of your nose, and forcefully exhale through the nose 3 to 5 times to clear the nasal passages, making it easier to breathe. I put a video link in the description about how to unblock your nose described by Dr. Sarah Hornsby. Check it later. You can use some type of nasal strip, especially those which have magnets. Not only do they hold the nasal skin apart, but they also help push the nasal passages open a bit more, making it easier for you to breathe in and out through the nose. How to stop mouth breathing and have a nasal breathing habit in 5 easy steps. Step 1. The first thing you need to do is determine whether you have a stuffy blocked nose or not, or it's a habit. Set a timer for 2 minutes and see if you can breathe through your nose for 2 minutes at a time. If it's difficult or you can't do it, that means there's a reason why your nose is stuffed up and it's not a habit. For fixing your stuffy nose, you should see a doctor, and if it's a habit, stay for the solutions. Step number 2. Figure out if you're allergic to anything and avoid being around those. There are 3 things that people are commonly allergic to, and that would be dust, dairy, and dander. If you can't figure out by yourself that you're allergic to something, then I recommend that you go get an allergy test. The 3rd step is to figure out if you have large tonsils. Tonsils are taking up some of your airway space in your throat, and if they're too large, it makes nasal breathing harder. Another part of tonsils is called adenoids. It's right behind our nose and our throat. You can't actually see if you have enlarged adenoids. You can either just try looking in the mirror, open your mouth wide, say ah, and look on the sides of your throat to see if you have any tonsil bulges, as you can see in the picture here. You can determine if your tonsils are size 3 or size 4, and those are the sizes which are considered a problem. A better way is to visit an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Those doctors can help you know using a scope or x-ray.
I did some research taking x-rays of these children who had got complete nasal obstruction. So they couldn't breathe out of their nose at all because of adenoid hypertrophy. The adenoids removed. Split them into 2 groups. The ones who now could breathe out of their noses, and the ones that still couldn't breathe out of their noses because removing the adenoid tissue had made no difference. The group that then could breathe out of their noses changed and became different from the ones that still couldn't breathe out of their noses. That's a very unlikely chance that it was a chance. So it's almost certain some change happened. Dimensions changed, the faces grew up and forwards.
The step 4 is determine where your tongue is resting. The tongue should always be resting at the top of your mouth. If not, make it into a habit. As you know, it's the most important advice of Dr. Mike Mew, which is called mewing.
And the common comment I get from people who are mewing is, "Oh, I'm mewing all the time." I go, "You sure you're mewing all the time?" They go, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, why are your lips open?" "No, they're not." And I go, "They were just a second ago." Whenever they're thinking, they're doing it. But most of the time, you're not thinking about it. We are right on this edge of modern technology where we could achieve so much. Yeah. So we can get reminders helping us, you with some sort of device that just reminds you to keep your mouth together.
The reminder feature of our mewing app may be the best solution for those who tend to forget to maintain the proper mewing posture consistently. It's a common issue among mewers. This app sends multiple notifications to your smartphone at random intervals, which can be customized to match your daily schedule. You can find the download link in the description. The 5th step is to learn how to unblock your nose. You can always take medication, use nasal sprays, take allergy medication like Benadryl, or use a neti pot that you can find online or in pharmacies to help your nose breathe easier through. When it comes to mouth breathing, there's daytime versus nighttime. The nighttime is a little more complicated. Once you're asleep, your muscles will go to whatever muscle memory they feel comfortable with. You probably have heard about mouth tapes, and yes, those are the solution for the time while you are asleep. After wearing the tape for about 3 months, it should have you naturally breathing through your nose during sleep and improve your breathing pattern during the day. Daytime is relatively simple in terms of just being cognizant of keeping your lips sealed as much as possible throughout the day, especially when you're not talking and not eating. But in some common situations, when people are watching TV or studying, they may have their mouths open unconsciously. Here, you need the mewing app reminder more than ever, because it's like a good friend that takes care of you by reminding you that you should maintain correct posture at all time. When not to nose breathe. The one time when it doesn't necessarily matter if your mouth breathing is during anaerobic or high-intensity exercise, because there were no changes in performance between mouth breathing and nasal breathing according to this study. Of course, it's better to avoid mouth taping if you have certain medical conditions or are in certain situations like after drinking alcohol. I should thank all of those who took time and answered the last video's question. Here are the top answers that won the 1-year mewing app subscription for free. Talk about the best exercise that helped you to make a beautiful change in your face. And again, we will give the top 10 comments that get more likes a free mewing app subscription and announce in the next video. Thanks for watching. Check these 2 videos for more advice.